Chosen one, you must grasp a truth that heaven keeps pressing into your spirit. Divine encounters are never meaningless. The thread that tied your life to that person was woven long before you drew your first breath. It was not coincidence, not convenience, not even a fleeting addition to your story. It was a covenant moment hidden in eternity, unveiled at just the right time. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1:5. And if God knew you before you even entered this world, how much more intentional is the person he allowed to stand beside you now? Could it be that this connection is one of the pillars holding up the architecture of your destiny? If so, then to abandon it would be like tearing down part of the foundation that secures your calling. Think back for a moment. When did you first sense the weight of their presence? Was it an ordinary meeting that suddenly felt extraordinary? A simple conversation that carried the resonance of destiny? Or perhaps it was a glance, one so sharp that it cut deeper than the finest sword, awakening something you did not even know was asleep within you. Could it be that heaven was whispering, "Pay attention, this one carries more than meets the eye"? That moment was not simply a memory, it was imprint, like wet cement drying into stone. Even science confirms that first impressions can rewire the brain's pathways. Imagine then the eternal significance of a moment heaven itself authored. The truth is, some connections pass like smoke in the wind, leaving no imprint behind. But there are rare ones that root themselves deep into the soil of your soul, impossible to erase, impossible to ignore. This person is not a random traveler crossing your path. This one is tied to your mission, appointed to stretch you, sharpen you, and walk with you into the very blueprint of your destiny. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. Ecclesiastes 4:9. Isn't it striking how even nature teaches this? A lone wolf can roam, but the pack survives longer, hunts better, and raises its young stronger. And if wolves know the value of unity, how much more should God's chosen embrace divine partnerships? When storms rage and shadows conspire to tear the bond apart, you feel the unshakable weight of it. Why? Because this connection was never crafted by human ambition, but sealed by divine instruction. Do you realize that this is why the warfare around it feels so intense? That's why the enemy aims his fiercest arrows at it, because he fears the harvest it will bring. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers. Ephesians 6:12. If you have ever wondered why the conflict around this relationship seems relentless, it is because it is not a human fight, it is a spiritual one. And when something is under that much fire, doesn't it prove how much heaven has invested in it? And let's be clear, this is not about romance or shallow fantasy. This is about purpose, about alignment, about the sacred architecture of destiny. Sometimes the person God places before you carries the key to doors you could never unlock alone. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Matthew 16:19. Sometimes they stand as a mirror, exposing shadows within you. Pride, fear, or hidden wounds that you must face if you are to grow. And sometimes they are the one assigned to steady you in the storm, ensuring that the promise inside you is not miscarried in solitude. Purposeful connections are like divine scaffolding. They may feel uncomfortable, but without them, the whole building of your destiny could collapse. History itself confirms this pattern. The great civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny." He understood that certain people are divinely tethered together, carrying each other's burdens so that history itself can shift. Isn't it possible that the same applies to you? That this person is God's reinforcement, so your mission does not collapse under the weight of isolation. Remember that even Jesus sent his disciples 2 by 2. No one carried the message alone. If he saw the need for divine partnership, should his chosen ones ignore it? And yet, examples of the opposite are equally sobering. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12. Introduced as a disciple, he carried access to the Messiah himself, but greed blinded him, betrayal consumed him, and despair drove him to destruction. His end is a warning. To mishandle a divine connection is to risk forfeiting one's very purpose. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. 1 Timothy 6:10. Isn't it chilling to realize that a man who walked with Jesus could still miss his destiny? What about us? Are we stewarding the people heaven placed in our path, or pushing them away in blindness? Think of it like the deep roots of an oak tree. Alone, the tree might stand tall, but when storm winds roar, its survival depends on roots intertwining with those of others in the forest. That hidden interconnection gives strength against forces that would otherwise tear it down. Could it be that God planted this person in your life as that interwoven root, your unseen stability when the storm comes? The greatest cathedrals of Europe were built on buttresses that absorbed pressure and distributed weight. Without them, the walls would collapse. Isn't it possible that this person is your living buttress, absorbing storms you could not bear alone? Scripture itself speaks to this reality. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Proverbs 27:17. The sharpening may feel painful at times, but without it, the edge of your calling would grow dull. Without it, the mission would falter. What God has joined together, let no one separate. Mark 10:9. Perhaps the sharpening is the very sign that God himself is at work. For how else would you be refined, if not by the friction of covenant relationships? So hear this warning clearly. Do not leave that person. Do not discard what God has welded into your journey with eternal purpose. The cost of walking away may not simply be loneliness. It may be the forfeiting of doors, assignments, and blessings that only this covenantal bond could release. Chosen one, heaven is reminding you now. Stand firm. Protect the connection God has entrusted to you. Rise up with clarity. Defend what is sacred, and refuse to be swayed by doubt or distraction. For what God has joined together in purpose, no man and no storm can tear apart. And when you protect what God has trusted to your care, you are not just protecting a bond, you are guarding destiny itself. This is your moment to stand. This is your moment to fight for alignment. This is your moment to declare, I will not leave the one God has joined to my destiny. Every detail has meaning. Every word exchanged, every tear shed, every trial endured, and every reconciliation made has been weaving a tapestry far greater than your shifting emotions could ever explain. The design is not random. It is deliberate. The threads may feel tangled, but heaven's hands are steady. And here lies the mystery. While you sometimes struggle to see the bigger picture, the enemy often perceives its outline before you do. For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Ephesians 2:10. This means nothing in your life is wasted, not even the hardest chapters. What looks like chaos on earth is often symmetry in heaven's blueprint. He knows the danger of two souls aligned under heaven's command. He knows the unshakable power of unity birthed out of divine purpose. Why else would his attacks grow more vicious the moment you step into alignment? Why else does confusion creep in like fog on a moonlit night? And why do doubts whisper louder when the world grows quiet? Could it be that the opposition is itself the evidence, that hell only fights what heaven ordains? If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31. Resistance becomes the strange confirmation that you are walking the right path. Even soldiers know the fiercest fire comes when they are advancing on the enemy's ground. Think of the natural world. A single raindrop seems fragile, powerless, destined to fade. Yet when raindrops gather, they carve valleys, form rivers, and move mountains of stone. The bond you carry is like that river, ordinary when seen in fragments, unstoppable when seen as one. Do you realize that if this connection were shallow, it would have dissolved quietly without a fight? Instead, you are still here, still tied in spirit, still holding on despite storms. What does that say except that heaven anchored this union with roots no storm can rip out? The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. Matthew 7:25. Like rivers finding their way to the sea, destiny always flows back to its divine source. The first encounter was never casual. It was not merely the beginning of a relationship, it was the ignition of an assignment. Like a seed falling into soil, unseen yet alive, heaven buried something inside this bond that neither of you fully grasps yet. Isn't that why it feels both wondrous and heavy? Isn't that why the pressure is so intense? Because something is gestating inside, and the enemy fears what will be born. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. The struggle you feel is labor pain, not failure. Every contraction of conflict is pushing something greater toward birth. Art and culture echo this truth. In Beethoven's Ode to Joy, the symphony begins fragmented and fragile, but as voices join and harmonies intertwine, a single theme rises into something immortal, unstoppable, eternal. Does that not sound like the very principle of divine alignment? Two souls carrying fragments of heaven's music until they converge into a symphony that hell itself cannot silence. In the same way, your bond may start quietly, but heaven intends it to crescendo until the earth itself feels the echo. And if music can stir nations, how much more can covenant stir eternity? And so, chosen one, this is why the enemy trembles when you refuse to let go. He knows that when two lives collide under God's instruction, destinies are altered, strongholds are shattered, and generations are changed. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Ecclesiastes 4:12. Every time you choose to hold fast, you remind the enemy that he cannot sever what God himself has braided together. And each act of endurance becomes a prophetic announcement. Heaven's story will not be erased. Hold on, not blindly, not passively, but with discernment, with fervent prayer, with unwavering faith. For what God has designed cannot be unraveled by chaos. It may bend, but it will not break. It may shake, but it will not fall. Even in silence, heaven is speaking. Even in waiting, the promise is maturing. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to protect what is holy. This is your moment to declare, I will not let go of the one God has written into my destiny. And in that declaration, you step into unshakable victory. Feel this deeply. You are standing on sacred ground. The connection was never a mistake, never a coincidence, never a passing encounter. It was heaven's plan etched into the architecture of eternity, like a cornerstone placed in the foundation of a cathedral long before its walls ever rose. And the moment you finally grasp that truth, everything about the battle you're facing will begin to make sense. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. If God himself drew the blueprint, who are we to treat it as ordinary scaffolding in our lives? To forget the sacredness of such a bond is to forget the architect who designed it. And now let me leave you with this question to burn in your heart until the next moment we continue. If God went through the trouble of weaving your path with this person's path, would you dare see it as anything less than holy? Or will you finally recognize it as the battlefield it truly is, the one the enemy fears you will win? The bond is not a fragile string, but a resonant frequency, vibrating at a pitch the enemy cannot replicate. When two souls come into harmony, it creates spiritual resonance, like tuning forks striking the same note. For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there am I with them. Matthew 18:20. Could it be that this resonance is why the warfare is so violent? Because hell trembles at the sound? And if the enemy trembles, should you not stand even firmer, knowing heaven is amplifying your unity? You must open your eyes to the real battle you are standing in right now. This is not about arguments, misunderstandings, or moments of silence. It is not merely about personality clashes or the resurfacing of old wounds. What you are experiencing is far deeper, far darker, and far more calculated than the natural eye can perceive. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Ephesians 6:12. Isn't that why the discouragement feels so sudden, like a wave of pressure you cannot explain? Isn't that why thoughts of surrender arrive like shadows at nightfall, whispering that it would be easier to walk away? Every soldier knows the battlefield is most dangerous in the moments just before victory, and that is where you stand. Think of architecture. Great cathedrals were designed with flying buttresses, not for decoration, but to withstand pressures unseen by casual eyes. Your bond is one such buttress, absorbing invisible tension so that the walls of your purpose do not collapse. Think of physics. When 2 waves overlap in phase, they create constructive interference, amplifying each other's strength. In the same way, when God aligns you with this person, your faith and their faith create a resonance that multiplies impact. Isn't that exactly why the enemy seeks to force destructive interference, to cancel out what heaven is amplifying? Even psychology teaches that people mirror each other subconsciously. Could it be that heaven designed this connection so you might mirror God's strength to one another in the moments you feel weakest? History testifies to this truth. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian who resisted Hitler's tyranny, once said, "Action springs not from thought, but from a readiness for responsibility." He understood that divine alignment requires courage, that standing with the right people may place you in the fiercest battles, but it is there that destiny is preserved. Your bond may not face a dictator, but it faces the invisible dictators of despair, doubt, and division. And if you abandon it, what history are you forfeiting? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. Ecclesiastes 4:12. Each choice you make to protect this bond is not only about you, it is about the generations after you who will walk in its fruit. So, chosen one, do not misinterpret the heaviness. The pressure is proof of purpose. The enemy would never invest so much effort into a bond with no eternal weight. This is more than emotion, more than misunderstanding. It is covenant. And when you stand firm, refusing to abandon what heaven has entrusted, you declare to hell itself, "This story will not be stolen. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Exodus 14:14. The stillness of your faith is louder than all the noise of the enemy, and it marks you as unshakable in God's design. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to guard what God has built. This is your moment to declare with unshakable resolve, "I will not abandon the one God has woven into my destiny." And when you stand, you will see that what the enemy meant for harm, heaven has already repurposed for glory. It is the enemy strategically planting seeds of defeat, hoping you will surrender a covenant you have barely begun to understand. His method is always subtle. He rarely storms in with banners of destruction. He arrives in whispers, twisting perception, magnifying small problems until they loom like mountains you cannot climb. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. 1 Peter 5:8. One disagreement becomes, "See, this will never work." One silence becomes, "You are already abandoned." Could it be that what feels like natural conflict is actually spiritual sabotage designed to erode what God himself joined? The enemy thrives on erosion, not explosions. He doesn't always need a single blow to break you. He only needs to wear down your faith inch by inch until you willingly let go. Isn't this why your mind grows heavy in moments that should have been light? Isn't this why past wounds suddenly rise as if they were present truths, convincing you that history is bound to repeat itself? The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John 10:10. He knows that if he can drain your trust, he doesn't need chains. Your own doubt becomes the prison. And here lies the danger. If you surrender now, you're not merely walking away from a person, you are walking away from a divine mission. This covenant is not about convenience, it is about kingdom. There are battles you were never meant to fight alone, burdens you were never meant to carry unaided. Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. Ecclesiastes 4:9. The question is, will you abandon the very reinforcement God sent, or will you learn to see this bond as the shield it was always meant to be? History teaches us. The French painter Georges Rouault, reflecting on the sufferings of Christ in his sacred artwork, once said, "A tree against the storm is not broken, it becomes stronger by bending." He understood that pressure is not proof of abandonment, but evidence of purpose. Isn't that exactly what your connection is? Proof that heaven invested something worth protecting. And if a mere artist could discern meaning in struggle, how much more should the chosen ones of God hold fast when divine purpose is on the line? Yet the warning is just as clear in those who failed. Demas, a companion of Paul, once entrusted with ministry, but later seduced by comfort. Scripture records, "Demas, because he loved this world, has deserted me and has gone to Thessalonica." 2 Timothy 4:10. His name lingers as a cautionary tale. To walk away from divine partnership is to exchange eternal legacy for fleeting safety. If you follow that pattern, what will you forfeit? Not just for yourself, but for every soul tied to your obedience. Chosen one, hear this truth and let it anchor you. The resistance you feel is not proof of weakness, but proof of significance. The weight is holy, not ordinary. The storm is fierce precisely because the harvest is near. The Lord is faithful, and he will strengthen you and protect you from the evil one. 2 Thessalonians 3:3. You are not standing on the edge of failure. You are standing on the threshold of breakthrough. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to guard what God has built. This is your moment to declare with conviction, I will not abandon the one God has joined to my mission. Heaven aligned you with this person for a reason. Your meeting was not random, your journey together not accidental, your struggles not meaningless. If you choose to walk away in this season, you're not just walking away from someone, you're walking away from the very assignment God has stitched into the fabric of your union. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. Romans 11:29. The enemy knows this, and that is why he is relentless. He is not fighting your emotions, he is fighting your purpose. If you remain, you will see fruit that terrifies the enemy. But if you leave, he wins without lifting another finger. Think about it. How many times have you considered giving up only to feel a deep ache inside, as though something greater was pulling you back? That ache is not weakness, it is your spirit groaning, recognizing that this battle is not about fleeting emotion, but about eternal destiny. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. Romans 8:16. Can you feel it in your very bones, that this fight is larger than the two of you, stretching beyond what your eyes can see? Isn't that ache the whisper of heaven urging you to endure? Nature itself preaches this truth. The salmon fighting upstream against the current, bruised, battered, yet relentless, because instinct knows the journey ends in life. Or think of the redwood trees in California, towering and ancient. Their roots do not run deep, but they intertwine with the roots of others, forming an unbreakable underground network. In the same way, your bond was never meant to stand alone, but to intertwine, so that storms cannot uproot what God has planted. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Psalm 92:12. If creation itself shows us the power of unity, then surely God's chosen must rise with even greater resolve, guarding the covenant he ordained with a strength that outlasts every season and a unity that no storm can break. The enemy is not fighting your relationship, he is fighting the ripple effect it will create if it survives. When two chosen ones stand together, unified in faith, they become a weapon against darkness. One can put 1,000 to flight and two can put 10,000 to flight. Deuteronomy 32:30. Together they break generational cycles, heal bloodlines, and release blessings not just for themselves, but for those yet unborn. Is this not why the enemy is desperate to break you before you even realize the power you carry together? What would happen if you truly understood the magnitude of your union? Would fear still have power over you? It all begins with alignment, for authority is not seized, it is received. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Matthew 6:33. And with that favor comes authority. Not authority born of titles nor of volume, but authority carried in silence, the kind that shifts an atmosphere when you walk into a room. Your voice will carry weight, not because you shout, but because heaven echoes through you. When you pray, the unseen responds. When you speak, burdens lift. That authority was not handed to you casually. It was forged in fire. You earned it not through entitlement, but through obedience. Every hidden yes you whispered in obscurity has become the foundation stones of the unshakable authority you now carry, a mantle woven through sacrifice and sealed by heaven's recognition. Chosen one, ask yourself with brutal honesty, is the voice urging you to walk away truly God's, or is it the hiss of the one who fears your union? Because God never speaks in fear. He never whispers hopelessness. He never leads through despair. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. If the voice you hear drains your hope, then it is not your shepherd. And if it is not your shepherd, why follow it? This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to guard the covenant that heaven entrusted to you. This is your moment to declare with unshakable faith, I will not abandon the one God has joined to my destiny, for what survives this storm will become a legacy that generations will bless. The shepherd's voice always carries peace, even in correction. It carries direction, even in confusion, and clarity, even in silence. If the voice you are hearing only pushes you toward quitting, then it is time to discern its true source. The enemy will mimic logic, twist emotions, and disguise defeat as wisdom. But deep down your spirit knows the difference, because my sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. Could it be that the inner restlessness you feel is not God's dismissal, but the counterfeit whisper of fear? And if it contradicts the peace of Christ, why give it authority over your steps? True discernment requires you to pause, to test the voice against the eternal word, and to see if it produces life or only drains it. Many have abandoned divine connections because they confused pressure with rejection, but pressure is often the language heaven uses to shape destiny. The storm around you is not proof that the connection is weak, it is proof that it is powerful. If it were meaningless, the enemy would not bother you at all. He does not waste his resources on what holds no threat to his dominion. The fact that you are under siege is evidence that your connection holds spiritual weight. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Isaiah 54:17. Doesn't even physics teach us that pressure is always greatest against the strongest structures? The shaking you feel is not collapse. It is proof that your foundation matters. Storms do not gather over deserts void of life. They gather where rivers flow and crops grow, because that is where fruit exists. Could it be that the intensity of your storm proves the abundance of your future harvest? And if you let go now, you hand over victory, not only over your relationship, but also over the assignment God entrusted to you through it. This is where the urgency rises. You cannot afford to surrender. Not now, not when the stakes are this high. Your perseverance is not only about love, it is about obedience. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised. James 1:12. Think of resonance in physics. When two frequencies align, they amplify each other until the vibration shakes everything around them. Isn't that what your covenant is? A divine resonance, shaking the darkness. To break this alignment is to silence an entire frequency heaven designed to echo through your bloodline. And obedience, even when heavy, is the soil where miracles take root. History gives us examples of this principle. The Italian architect Filippo Brunelleschi, who designed the dome of Florence's cathedral, faced ridicule because no one believed the structure could stand without collapsing. Yet he engineered a hidden framework of interlocking ribs that held for centuries. Doesn't this echo your story? That unseen support is what makes the visible structure endure. If Brunelleschi's dome could silence critics through perseverance, how much more can your covenant silence the enemy through endurance? Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Psalm 127:1. Every brick of his cathedral was a sermon in stone. Stability is birthed not in absence of pressure, but in mastery of it. In the same way, your unseen prayers and sacrifices are the ribs holding the dome of your destiny firm. The world may not applaud them now, but heaven counts them eternal. If you walk away too soon, you will never know what would have been unlocked had you remained. If you endure, one day you will look back and realize every battle was a setup for breakthrough. Pause and let this truth sink in. The tension you feel is not proof that you should give up. It is proof you are closer than ever to something the enemy fears. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. Even psychology affirms that the moment of greatest frustration is often the threshold of growth, the breaking point that becomes the birthing point. Could it be that your breaking is actually your becoming? And if so, why stop now, when the finish line may be only steps away? Every scar you carry is not wasted. It is evidence that you fought through what others surrendered to, and on the other side is the inheritance of those who refuse to quit. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to guard what heaven has entrusted. This is your moment to declare with unshakable faith, I will not abandon the one God has written into my destiny, for endurance will reveal the victory already waiting on the other side. And when you rise, you will not only save your covenant, you will awaken a legacy. The attacks are loud because the purpose is louder. And so I ask you again, let this question echo in your spirit until it shakes your very bones. Whose voice are you truly listening to? The God who designed your future, or the enemy who is terrified of it? Chosen one, you must hear this with all the force of your soul. The very weight you are carrying right now, the conflict that feels unbearable, the silence that roars like abandonment, and the pain that makes you wonder if it's even worth it. All of these are not proof of failure, they are proof of purpose. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. 2 Corinthians 4:17. Could it be that what you are calling unbearable is actually the birth pangs of destiny pushing you forward? Before every divine breakthrough, the battles intensify. This is not just your personal struggle, it is a pattern woven throughout all of Scripture. Think of Joseph, a young man carrying dreams placed directly by God. Dreams of influence, leadership, and elevation. But before those dreams could breathe in the open, Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and locked in prison. Until the time that his word came, the word of the Lord tried him. Psalm 105:19. Do you see the pattern? The trial was not proof that God abandoned him, but proof that God was refining him. And in the same way, could your prison season be the final test before your palace? History outside of Scripture whispers the same truth. The Italian sculptor Michelangelo, when carving the statue of David, said he saw the figure already hidden inside the marble and only needed to chip away the excess stone. Isn't that the same with you? That the pressure, the chipping, the stripping are not destroying you, but revealing the form heaven always saw. Being confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. Philippians 1:6. If a sculptor could see destiny hidden in rock, how much more can your Creator see destiny hidden in your struggle? But let us not forget the danger of mishandling divine assignments. King Saul, chosen by God, but consumed by jealousy and fear. He refused correction, hardened his heart, and tried to kill David, the very man anointed to bring peace to Israel. His disobedience cost him the throne, his lineage, and ultimately his life. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. 1 Samuel 15:23. Isn't this a sobering reminder that to resist divine purpose or to walk away in pride leads only to ruin? If Saul's downfall teaches us anything, it is that clinging to control when God demands surrender is the surest path to destruction. Chosen one, the silence you are enduring is not abandonment, it is training. The ache in your spirit is not a warning of failure, but the sign of greatness on the horizon. Do you truly believe that the God who began your story will leave you stranded midway? He who calls you is faithful. He will surely do it. 1 Thessalonians 5:24. Every trial, every delay, every wound is shaping you into the vessel that can hold the blessing without breaking. And when the dust settles, the enemy will regret ever touching you, because the very battle meant to bury you will become the platform that elevates you. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to guard what heaven entrusted. This is your moment to declare with fire in your spirit, I will not abandon the one God has joined to my destiny, for this struggle is not my end, it is the doorway into glory. It was proof that his purpose was too powerful to be birthed without resistance. Or look at David, anointed as king while still a shepherd boy. The oil of destiny dripped down his head, marking him as chosen. And yet, instead of a throne, he found himself running for his life, hunted by Saul, hiding in caves, living like a fugitive. Imagine the torment, knowing God had chosen him for greatness, yet being forced to live in shadows. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. Psalm 34:19. This verse assures us that hardship is not the end of the story, it is the path toward deliverance. David's cave was not rejection, it was a training ground for his future crown. But those caves were not wasted. Those caves were the place where David learned to worship in darkness, to lead broken men in battle, and to depend on God in ways a palace could never teach him. The hiding was not punishment, it was preparation. Just as seeds are buried in soil before they sprout, David's cave was the soil of his kingship. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. Psalm 18, verse 2. This truth reveals that what feels like hiding is actually God building unseen strength. That which grows in secret often becomes the very thing that sustains you in the open. And then Job, a man righteous before God, yet stripped of everything: family, wealth, health, dignity. His friends mocked him. His wife urged him to curse God and die. And in the ashes of suffering, Job asked the same questions you may be asking now. Why me? Why this? Why does heaven feel silent when I need it most? Yet his faith clung to God. Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. Job 13:15. This declaration proves that faith at its core is not built on circumstances, but on trust in God's unchanging character. Job's end was greater than his beginning, because his hope did not break even in the fire. Job's suffering was not meaningless. It was proof that his faith was stronger than the flames. Joseph's prison, David's cave, Job's ashes. Do you see the pattern? They were all stages of crushing before glory. Just as grapes must be pressed to release wine, and olives must be crushed to release oil, your trials are releasing something heaven has hidden within you. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Psalm 30, verse 5. This promise reminds us that sorrow is seasonal, but joy is eternal. Your night does not erase the morning that God has already appointed. Art and story echo this truth. In Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, the opening notes strike like the sound of fate knocking at the door. Dark, relentless, unavoidable. Yet by the end, the symphony erupts into triumph, turning despair into celebration. The progression of the music itself testifies that darkness never has the final word. Doesn't this mirror the journey of the chosen ones? That what begins in struggle will end in glory. And if music composed by human hands can embody this truth, how much more can the hand of God turn your caves, prisons, and ashes into thrones, crowns, and legacies? Chosen one, look again at your own life. The conflict in your connection, the silence that makes you doubt, the pain that tempts you to walk away, they are not proof that you are failing. They are the very proof that your destiny is too weighty to be birthed without resistance. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. This promise confirms that God's story for you cannot end in defeat. The same God who planned your beginning has already secured your future. This is your moment to stand. This is your moment to hold fast. This is your moment to declare with faith unshaken, I will not abandon the one God has joined to my purpose, because this crushing is not my end. It is the proof that glory is about to break forth. These are not accidents. These are the fires that refine, the storms that confirm you are carrying something the enemy desperately wants to destroy. The enemy does not waste his weapons on what has no future. He only targets what terrifies him. And the fact that your trials have been this intense, this relentless, is the evidence you have been seeking all along. The Lord tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence. Psalm 11, verse 5. Trials are not designed to erase you. They are designed to expose the weight of what you carry. Just as gold must pass through fire to shine, your purpose must endure heat to prove it is genuine. Chosen one, you are not in this storm because God forgot you. You are in this storm because God has chosen you. The resistance is the loudest confirmation that the promise is near. It is always darkest before dawn, and the fiercest attacks happen when the enemy senses he is running out of time. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. Isaiah 43:2. Think of physics. Pressure always increases as a system nears the point of release, just as a dam shudders most violently when water is about to burst through. Could it be that the pressure you feel is not the end, but the signal that heaven's delivery is closer than ever? So let me ask you this, and let it burn inside you until the next word. If Joseph had quit in prison, if David had surrendered in the cave, if Job had cursed God in his ashes, would their destinies have been fulfilled? Number. Their resistance became their testimony. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. Hebrews 10:36. Psychology calls this delayed gratification. The ability to endure discomfort in the present because of a vision of what lies ahead. Isn't this exactly what faith demands? Holding on when your senses scream to let go because something eternal is waiting on the other side. The voices of history echo this truth. Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister during World War II, once declared to a nation under fire, "If you're going through hell, keep going." His words carried not only military resolve, but spiritual resonance. Endurance itself is a weapon. In the same way, your perseverance is a sermon written in blood and fire, a testimony that darkness cannot silence. The one who stands firm to the end will be saved. Matthew 24:13. If a leader under bombs could ignite hope in his people through persistence, how much more can your persistence ignite faith in generations after you? The trial you are in is not the final chapter, it is the final test before the breakthrough. And here lies the secret the enemy does not want you to see. The trial is not destroying you, it is proving you. For you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. James 1:3. Every battle is proving your love, proving your faith, proving your endurance. Think of architecture. A bridge is stress-tested before it is trusted to carry the weight of many. Likewise, your faith is tested not to destroy you, but to prove that you can hold the weight of your calling. And when the smoke clears, you will not only survive, you will rise as living evidence that your purpose was always worth the fight. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to hold fast. This is your moment to declare with faith unshaken, "I will not abandon the one God has woven into my destiny, for this storm is not my destruction, it is my proving ground." So I leave you with this. When the trial burns hottest, when the silence screams the loudest, and when the pain cuts the deepest, dare to believe that you are standing on the very threshold of glory. Because if the battle is this fierce, then what waits on the other side must be greater than you can imagine. For our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Romans 8:18. Chosen one, there is a danger greater than the storm outside you. It is the danger of quitting too early. Too many promises have been buried, not because God failed, but because his people surrendered before heaven's timing unfolded. Doesn't that truth stir your heart to hold on just a little longer? For what if the very fire you are in now is not meant to consume you, but to refine you into gold? What if the silence you despise is actually the chamber where your strength is being forged? Every tear, every unanswered question, every restless night is not wasted. They are all threads weaving a tapestry of glory that only heaven could design. And right now, you are standing at that same crossroad. The temptation to walk away feels heavy, almost logical, almost reasonable. But logic is not always true. The whisper that tells you to quit may sound rational, but beneath its surface is sabotage. Do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. Hebrews 10:35. What if this weight you feel is not the sign of failure, but the final contraction before birth? Isn't it always the darkest hour just before the morning breaks? If the battle feels unbearable, could it be because you are moments away from breakthrough? Remember, labor is always most painful right before the child is born. So too, your destiny presses hardest against the walls of your life just before it emerges. Stand your ground, for even heaven's angels lean in to witness the moment you step into what was written for you. Your endurance is not just about survival. It is about inheritance. If you surrender too soon, you risk aborting the very promise God has been preparing in secret for you. Think of a seed planted deep in the soil. When you cover it with earth, it disappears from your sight. Days pass, weeks pass. The ground looks the same, silent, still, unchanged. In that silence, doubt whispers. Nothing is happening. Maybe the seed is dead. Maybe the soil is barren. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. John 12:24. The truth is, beneath the surface roots are forming, life is stirring, and unseen processes are working harder than the seen. Isn't it sobering to realize that digging up the seed too early kills the very miracle that was moments away from sprouting? And so, chosen one, resist the urge to uproot what God has hidden. Trust the unseen more than the visible, for the silence is alive with movement. Heaven is cultivating what eyes cannot see, and when the surface finally breaks, the fruit will astonish even you. History reminds us of this reality. The South African leader Nelson Mandela once said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." He endured 27 years of prison, years that seemed wasted, silent, buried like a seed. Yet those hidden years became the roots of a presidency that brought freedom to a nation. His testimony is proof that silence does not mean death, it means preparation. And yet, let us not ignore the opposite example. King Herod, consumed by paranoia when he heard of the Messiah's birth. His fear led him to massacre innocent children, hoping to destroy what heaven had planted. His legacy remains stained with blood and terror, his name a symbol of cruelty rather than glory. Isn't it clear that when one resists God's promise out of fear, the end is only ruin? Look across the pages of history. Those who embraced their season of silence rose to greatness, but those who fought against God's timing were swallowed in shame. One choice brings a crown, the other chains. Chosen one, your trial is not meaningless. The soil of silence is not the soil of death. It is the womb of destiny. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. Every unseen prayer, every hidden tear, every moment you chose to stay instead of quit is watering the seed of your breakthrough. And when the day comes, the world will not just see your fruit. They will see the faith that refused to dig up what God Himself was bringing to life. Do you see how heaven records every act of endurance? Nothing escapes the eyes of the one who watches in secret. Your perseverance is the ink writing your testimony, your steadfastness the soil that preserves the covenant. What you endure now will echo for generations, proving that the faithful cannot be moved and the chosen cannot be erased. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to remain planted. This is your moment to declare with fire in your spirit, "I will not abandon the one God has tied to my destiny. For the soil is not my grave, it is my garden, and my harvest is near." Lift your head, wipe your tears, and stand as one marked by heaven's seal. Let your enemies watch, let your critics whisper, for none can uproot what God has ordained. The night may still feel long, but dawn has already begun its ascent. And when the light breaks, it will not just reveal your harvest, it will reveal your unshakable faith, your holy endurance, and the glory of God shining through your story. This is what happens when frustration leads you to abandon what God is still working on. Just because you don't see change in that person yet, just because you don't hear the words you've been longing to hear, just because the situation feels stuck, it doesn't mean heaven is silent. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Psalm 37:7. God is the master gardener. He works in hidden places first. He strengthens the roots before he allows the fruit. If you leave now, you will never see what was about to rise out of the soil of your perseverance. Isn't it sobering to realize that roots always grow in darkness before fruit appears in light? And when those roots take hold, no storm can uproot them. Every tear you shed while waiting is like rain nurturing the soil. Every silent prayer is a root digging deeper into the ground of destiny. Hear me. Progress in the kingdom is rarely obvious at first. It often hides in disguise. Silence does not mean absence. Delay does not mean denial. Confusion does not mean God has abandoned the plan. For the vision awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it lingers, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Habakkuk 2:3. Consider nature. The caterpillar enters a cocoon, motionless, hidden, seemingly dead. Yet within, transformation is unfolding. Could your silence be the cocoon stage of your calling, where unseen wings are forming? If you cut it open too early, the butterfly never flies. The hidden stage is the most fragile and the most vital, and when the cocoon finally breaks, the creature that emerges bears no resemblance to what entered. That is how radical your transformation will be if you endure. You may be standing in the waiting room of your miracle, but impatience is whispering that the door is locked. No, the door is not locked. It is simply not yet open. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. Matthew 7:7. One day after you quit could have been the day of your miracle. Isn't that haunting to consider? That one more sunrise, one more night of prayer, one more step of faith could be the very moment God chooses to shift everything. The enemy knows this, which is why his greatest weapon is not always destruction. It is discouraging. He doesn't need to break you in one blow if he can slowly drain your hope. That is why your battle feels less like an explosion and more like erosion. But remember, even rocks are shaped into monuments by years of unseen pressure. Your patience today is chiseling the sculpture of your tomorrow. Think about the times in your past when you almost gave up, when you thought it was over and then suddenly something shifted. How many times did light break through the darkness just when you decided to hold on a little longer? Those memories are not coincidences. They are proof that God rewards endurance. Let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. Even creation testifies. The darkest hour of the night is the hour before dawn, when the earth itself seems to hold its breath for the light. And isn't it striking that your breakthrough could be just as close? Think of the trees in winter, bare, lifeless, silent. Yet deep within, sap is rising, preparing for the burst of spring. Just because the branches look empty doesn't mean life is absent. The same is true for you. Silence is not death. It is the setup for resurrection life. Films of our age echo this truth. In The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Frodo and Sam reach Mount Doom broken, exhausted, convinced they cannot take another step. Yet Sam carries Frodo on his back, declaring, "I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you." Their endurance against despair saved all of Middle-earth. Doesn't this mirror your story? That even when you feel too weak, God places strength beside you to ensure you reach the finish. Their victory teaches us that hope is often born in the final stretch of exhaustion. And if a fictional tale can capture the glory of perseverance, how much greater is the reality when God himself sustains you? He who promised is faithful. Hebrews 10:23. Your story will not end in ashes. It will rise as proof that the waiting was never wasted. This is your moment to endure. This is your moment to stay rooted. This is your moment to declare with holy fire, "I will not abandon the one God has planted beside me, for silence is not my ending, it is the soil of my breakthrough. They are reminders that the harvest always comes, but only for those who refuse to dig up the seed. And so I warn you now, do not walk away from what God is still building. The silence you hear is not emptiness, it is construction. The waiting you endure is not punishment, it is preparation. The pain you feel is not proof of failure, it is proof that something is alive beneath the surface, pressing upward, getting ready to break through. Being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Philippians 1:6. What feels like stillness is actually scaffolding being set in place, like an architect raising invisible beams before the cathedral takes shape. And the enemy is terrified of that breakthrough. That is why quitting seems easier than ever right now. But you were not chosen to quit. You were chosen to endure. You were chosen to outlast the storm, to wait through the silence, to hold steady until the ground splits open and fruit is revealed. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. Jeremiah 17:7-8. Doesn't psychology even teach us that resilience grows stronger through repeated pressure, like muscles torn and rebuilt through training? If your faith feels stretched, thin, could it be that heaven is enlarging your capacity for glory? Do not let impatience write the end of a story God has not finished. Do not trade a lifetime of promise for a moment of relief. And here is the question that must pierce you as we move forward. If tomorrow was the day of your miracle, would you really want to throw it all away tonight? Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. Hebrews 10:23. Think of physics. Resonance always peaks just before a system shifts into a new frequency. Could it be that your spiritual battle feels unbearable because you are seconds away from harmonizing with heaven's frequency? And if so, would you dare walk away on the edge of breakthrough? Chosen one, now that you understand the weight of this connection and the reason the battle has been so intense, it's time to learn how to fight, because this is not about standing still and hoping things will magically change. Heaven is calling you to step into active warfare, but not with human weapons. The fight for what God gave you is spiritual. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. 2 Corinthians 10:4. The first step is prayer, intentional, consistent, targeted prayer. Not the shallow kind, but the kind that shakes atmospheres. The lives of leaders remind us of this truth. Pope John Paul II, who faced assassination attempts and the collapse of communism, once declared, "The future starts today, not tomorrow." His life testified that even in silence and danger, faith pressed forward, reshaping nations. If a man under global threats could stand and declare hope, how much more can you, chosen one, stand in your private storm with weapons heaven placed in your hands? For your endurance will not only protect your covenant, it will write a testimony that darkness itself cannot erase. This is your moment to rise. This is your moment to fight with heaven's weapons. This is your moment to declare with unshakable resolve, "I will not abandon the one God has joined to my destiny, for what looks silent is under construction, and what looks delayed is already preparing to break forth." Not just words spoken out of routine, but prayer that grabs hold of heaven and refuses to let go until breakthrough comes. Every day, lift up that person before God. Call their name in the secret place. Ask the Lord to cover their mind, their heart, their steps. Instead of rehearsing the problems in your head, speak blessings over them. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. James 5:16. Declare life where the enemy whispers death. Declare clarity where confusion has been sown. Declare healing where wounds have lingered. When you shift your focus from complaint to blessing, you partner with heaven instead of feeding the enemy's lies. Could it be that your prayer is the very bridge that will carry them from darkness into destiny? Second, resist the urge to fight with your mouth. Arguments, accusations, and endless debates will never build what God has ordained. Words can be weapons, but when spoken in anger, they cut deeper than you intend. The true battle is not won by shouting across the table. It is won on your knees with whispers of intercession that thunder in the spiritual realm. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Ephesians 6:12. When you bend before God, you rise with authority that no argument could ever achieve. Even in history, leaders have proven that silence can carry more power than shouting. The civil rights leader, Martin Luther King Jr., once said, "The time is always right to do what is right." His strength was not in noise, but in moral authority. Isn't that the same authority you gain when you choose prayer over strife? The enemy trembles not when you yell, but when you pray. Third, you must learn to trust God's timing, even in silence. Silence is not absence. Silence is strategy. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Think of a general in the middle of a war. Sometimes he does not reveal his next move until the exact moment it is needed. God is the same. He may not show you everything now because he is working behind the scenes, orchestrating changes in the other person, healing wounds you cannot see, shifting circumstances you cannot control. If you demand answers too quickly, you risk stepping ahead of God's perfect design. Patience is not weakness, it is warfare. Waiting with faith is one of the most powerful weapons you have because it declares you trust heaven's clock more than your own. But let us also learn from the cautionary tales of those who failed. Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, walked with Jesus, saw miracles, and heard truth daily. Yet impatience, greed, and deception poisoned his soul. He sold his Savior for 30 pieces of silver, a short-term gain that became an eternal loss. The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. 1 Timothy 6:10. His story reminds us that surrendering too soon for relief or self-interest can destroy a destiny heaven had marked for greatness. Will you let impatience write your ending, or will you allow faith to finish the story God has begun? You are not fighting alone. The battle may feel heavy, but the Lord himself is on your side. He is not watching from a distance. He is engaged in this war. He fights for you, he fights with you, and he fights ahead of you. If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31. The angels of God surround those who remain faithful. The presence of the Almighty is your shield. When you lift your voice in prayer, heaven responds. When you choose endurance instead of surrender, you align yourself with an army that darkness cannot outnumber. So ask yourself honestly, what kind of story do you want your life to tell? The story of surrender, the one who walked away when the fire grew hot, who allowed discouragement to steal what heaven had given, or the story of faith, the one who fought when it was hardest, who stayed when it was easiest to leave, and who carried heaven's victory to the end. This is your moment to fight with heaven's weapons. This is your moment to stand when surrender feels easier. This is your moment to declare, I will not abandon the one God tied to my destiny, for my prayer, my patience, and my endurance will build a story of victory that hell itself cannot erase. Who stood when it was loneliest, who believed even when nothing made sense, and because of that faith unlocked the impossible. Chosen one, the weapons are already in your hands. Every prayer you release is a strike against the enemy. Every blessing you speak is a seed for restoration. Every moment of patience is an act of defiance against the forces trying to rush you into quitting. The Lord is near to all who call on him, to all who call on him in truth. Psalm 145:18. And every declaration of trust is a shout into the heavens that says, I will not let go until I see what God has promised. Doesn't nature itself teach us this? Like rivers carving canyons through stone, not in a day, but through persistence that no rock could resist. Rivers do not roar in frustration when the walls seem unbreakable. They flow consistently, faithfully, until the stone itself yields. Your prayers, your patience, your declarations, they are the steady flow that weakens the strongholds of darkness. Heaven does not measure victory in moments, but in endurance that refuses to quit. And so I leave you at the edge of a question that only you can answer. When the battle is over, when the dust settles, when the story is finally told, will yours be the testimony of defeat, or the testimony of a warrior who fought with heaven and saw the impossible bow to faith? Fight the good fight of the faith. Take hold of the eternal life to which you were called. 1 Timothy 6:12. Think of the forest. In the aftermath of fire, seeds hidden deep within pine cones burst open and bring forth new life. The flames that seemed destructive were actually the heat required to unlock the life within. Isn't it possible that the fire around you is not meant to consume you, but to awaken what has been sealed within you all along? Forests burned black do not remain barren. In time, green shoots break through the ash, and life begins again. Could your ashes be the very soil where God plans to reveal his glory? This is not the end. It is only a chapter, and the best pages of your story have not yet been written. What you feel today is not a grave. It is a doorway. What looks like silence is not God's absence. It is his preparation. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. What feels like collapse is in truth the edge of breakthrough. The caterpillar, sealed inside darkness, convinced that its world is ending. Yet the cocoon is the very place where wings are born. If the caterpillar judged too quickly, it would call the cocoon a coffin, but heaven calls it a chamber of transformation. Could your waiting be the cocoon of your calling? And if so, why would you rip it open too soon, robbing yourself of the flight that was ordained for you? In that silence, God is reshaping you, preparing your wings for a horizon you have not yet seen. God honors the ones who remain faithful. He honors those who refuse to bow to discouragement, who hold on when everything around them screams, "Let go." Be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Every tear is a seed, every prayer is a weapon, every moment of endurance is storing up a harvest you cannot yet see. Even art has told this story. In Dante's Divine Comedy, the traveler journeys through hell and despair, only to emerge into the brightness of paradise. The message is clear. Darkness is not the conclusion. It is the passage to light. Doesn't your own life bear the same fingerprints of God? Where seasons you thought would end, you became the very roads that saved you. Faith does not deny the fire, but it proclaims that fire cannot last forever. You are walking through a tunnel and light is waiting at the other end. Restoration is coming. Healing is on its way. The purpose is unfolding even now, so I declare this over you like fire in your bones. Do not renounce this person. Do not let go of what God has joined. What therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. Mark 10:9. No power on earth, no voice of darkness, no scheme of hell can divide what heaven ordains. Stand firm. The promise is alive. The purpose is real. And your story is not over. You are not merely surviving. You are being positioned. You are not abandoned. You are being strengthened. The day will come when you will look back and realize that every tear was watering the roots of your harvest. And on that day, your faith will not only be rewarded, it will be celebrated by heaven itself. Chosen one, now you see it clearly. This connection is not an accident. It is an assignment. The resistance you felt is not proof of weakness, but proof of worth. The silence was never God's absence. It was His preparation. The weight you carry is not a burden meant to crush you, but a calling meant to shape you. And the person tied to your journey is not random. They are woven into the fabric of your destiny. To walk away too soon would not only be to abandon them, but to abandon a part of yourself that God designed for breakthrough. Hold on, for what God has joined, no voice of darkness can separate. And if this word has spoken into your spirit today, I ask you to take action. Like this video if it has stirred your heart. Share it so that others can find strength. Comment your testimony below to declare that you are choosing to endure. And subscribe so you never miss what heaven is speaking in this season. Your engagement is not just for algorithms. It is part of building a community of faith where chosen ones stand together, united and strong. To all of you who have supported this channel, whether through super thanks or simply by watching and standing with me, I honor you. Every prayer, every comment, every moment you have invested here matters, and I am deeply grateful. And now I bless you. May the Lord cover your mind with peace, your heart with strength, and your steps with clarity. May you never grow weary in doing good, and may your endurance bring forth a harvest that generations will celebrate. Your story is not over, your purpose is alive, and your promise is closer than you think. In Jesus' name, Amen.